Have you ever said to yourself, I feel older than my age? That strange sense that you've lived too much, seen too deeply, felt too hard, all before you even had the language to describe it. You sit quietly in rooms where everyone else is loud. You feel drained by small talk, disillusioned by surface-level connections. People say you're wise, grounded, an old soul. But what if you're not? What if what you've been calling wisdom is actually weariness? What if your silence isn't depth, but burnout? What if your emotional detachment isn't spiritual maturity, but a trauma response? Carl Jung didn't believe that all stillness was strength. He warned of a much darker possibility, that what we often mistake for enlightenment is actually the quiet death of the self. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And that's the danger, because exhaustion doesn't always look like collapse. Sometimes it looks like composure. Sometimes it looks like the calmest person in the room, the one who smiles faintly, speaks softly, and feels nothing. Stillness becomes a shield. Silence becomes a lifestyle. And slowly, you vanish. You don't rage. You don't cry. You don't fight. You withdraw. You watch life from a safe distance. And you convince yourself that this is peace. But Carl Jung would ask, is it really peace? Or have you simply given up the battle to feel? Because the most dangerous kind of burnout isn't the one that screams. It's the one that settles into solitude, settles into numbness, settles into a mask called maturity. But real maturity, Jung said, is integration, not avoidance. So here's the question that shatters the illusion. Are you a deep soul or just a disappearing one? Because they look the same from the outside. But inside, one is on fire with purpose. The other is quietly dying. You think you're evolving, but maybe you're just exhausted. This is not a video about personality types. This is not about being introverted or unique. This is about what happens when your soul gets tired. When life breaks you open too early, and you don't know how to close the wound. So you call it depth. You call it being old. But really, you're still bleeding. Carl Jung believed that healing begins not with hope, but with honesty. And this is your moment of honesty. Because if your so-called depth is just quiet despair, you don't need a new label. You need a resurrection. So don't scroll past this. This video will make you confront what you've been calling strength and force you to ask, is it really strength? Or is it surrender in disguise? Stay, because you might just discover that the old soul inside you isn't old at all. It's just waiting to come back to life. Welcome to Psychoria. Let's begin. You've been told you are an old soul, deep, wise, grounded beyond your years. But what if that is not the full story? What if what you are calling maturity is actually emotional shutdown? What if your stillness is not strength, but burnout dressed in spiritual clothing? This video pulls back the curtain on a painful but necessary question. Are you truly evolving, or are you slowly erasing yourself? Carl Jung believed that the line between enlightenment and emotional exhaustion is razor thin, and most people never realize they've crossed it. In this video, we will explore the psychological difference between depth and dissociation, how burnout wears the mask of spiritual wisdom, why Jung warned against mistaking numbness for individuation, how your childhood wounds may be branding themselves as inner maturity, and the hidden signs that your peace is really a silent collapse. But most importantly, you will learn how to wake up, how to reclaim your energy, reconnect to your authentic self, and break the trance of quiet despair. By the end, you will not just know the difference, you will feel it. And once you see it, you can never go back. Watch closely. This could change everything. There is a quiet epidemic no one is talking about. It does not scream. It does not collapse in public. It does not beg for attention. It whispers. It isolates. It retreats. And worst of all, it gets praised. You have probably heard it. She is so wise for her age. He is mature beyond his years. They have such an old soul. But what if that old soul is not wisdom, but weariness? What if what you are calling maturity is just trauma dressed in silence? What if your emotional distance is not a sign of strength, but the residue of wounds you never had time to heal? Carl Jung warned us, a man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. But most people do not pass through the inferno. They freeze in place. They numb out. They shut down. And instead of healing, they disappear. This is the hidden paradox. In a world that celebrates detachment, emotional shutdown is misdiagnosed as wisdom. Burnout becomes boundaries. Isolation becomes self-care. Numbness gets wrapped in spiritual language and sold as being above it all. But here is the uncomfortable truth. You might not be evolved. You might be erased. Because there is a dangerous place between awareness and collapse, where people stop engaging with life and start performing a version of it. You still show up. You still smile. You still say the right things. But inside, the flame is dying. And no one notices because you look so composed. But Jung would notice. He would see through the quiet. He would know that detachment without integration is not growth. It is disintegration. He called it psychic fragmentation, the slow unraveling of the self beneath a mask of stoic control. And it is everywhere right now. We live in a world that is too loud, too fast, and too shallow, so sensitivity feels like a curse. We armor up, we shut down, we retreat into ourselves. Not because we are wise, but because we are tired of being hurt. And the tragedy, we start mistaking our pain for our personality. You say, I am just like this. But you were not always like this. You used to feel. You used to care. You used to burn. Now you drift. And every time you call that numbness depth, you bury yourself a little deeper. So the real question is not, are you an old soul? The real question is, are you still in there? Because if you've mistaken emotional collapse for enlightenment, if you have romanticized your own disconnection, if you have started calling survival wisdom, then you are not maturing. You are disappearing. And this video, it is your wake-up call, not to feel ashamed, but to feel anything again. Because what is dying inside you might not be weakness. It might be the part of you that was meant to come alive. Here is the truth most people will never tell you. You can spend your entire life believing you are evolving, while quietly vanishing. Carl Jung understood something that still terrifies the modern psyche, that not all growth is real, that not all silence is wisdom, and that what we often label as depth or spiritual maturity is sometimes just the emotional aftershock of trauma we never fully faced. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Yet everywhere you look today, you are told to protect your peace, to stay unbothered, to rise above the chaos. But here is the uncomfortable reality. If your peace requires emotional detachment, it is not peace. It is paralysis. The real danger is not emotional chaos. It is emotional erosion, the slow, invisible fading of your soul while you wear the perfect mask of composure. And this is where Jung draws the line. He taught that the path to wholeness, what he called individuation, is not passive. It is not avoidance dressed in robes. It is not solitude dipped in spiritual-sounding affirmations. It is violent, humbling, alive. It is the integration of the very parts of yourself you have exiled. Your shadow, your wounds, your buried rage, your unspoken grief. Because the person you think you are, the calm, the mature, the wise version of you, might just be the last defense mechanism standing between you and your real self. Jung wrote of this illusion often. He saw people mistaking emotional shutdown for enlightenment. And the consequences: spiritual deadness masked as depth, hyper-independence misread as strength, chronic disconnection sold as wisdom. You see, individuation is not about becoming someone better. It is about reclaiming the parts of you that broke off when the world became too much to bear. And here is the twist. If you do not integrate what hurt you, you will begin to identify with it. You will start believing you are the silence. You are the withdrawal. You are the cold detachment. But you are not. You are still in there. The vivid feeling, burning version of you did not die. It hid, and it is waiting for you to stop calling its prison peace. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This captures the core of Carl Jung's transformative idea. You are not an old soul. You are a fragmented soul. And the journey ahead is not about growing older in spirit. It is about stitching yourself back together from the inside out. It is about facing the full spectrum of your humanity. Letting your wounds speak. Letting your fire return. Letting the numbness break so that feeling can flood back in. Because real depth does not come from standing still. It comes from walking through the storm of your own psyche, with your eyes open and your soul exposed. It is not glamorous. It is not pretty. But it is real. And it is the only way back to the life you were meant to live. This video is not here to comfort you. It's here to confront you. Because the scariest realization of all is not that you are broken. It is that you have mistaken your brokenness for growth and built your entire life around it. Now it's time to break the illusion. Today we are living in the most connected, overstimulated, emotionally numbed era in human history. And in a world that never stops talking, Jung's silence echoes louder than ever. He warned of what happens when people stop feeling, when they bypass their inner worlds for survival. And now you are seeing it everywhere. We scroll through life. We perform instead of living. We brand our breakdowns as boundaries. We post our pain as aesthetics. And worst of all, we wear our emotional exhaustion like it is a personality trait. I am just not a people person. I am emotionally unavailable. I am too old for this. No, you are tired. You are overwhelmed. You are spiritually saturated, and you have mistaken collapse for character. This is not maturity. It is burnout, dressed in spiritual clothing. Jung saw it coming. A time where the soul would fracture, not from chaos, but from overstimulation, shallow connection, and constant self-avoidance. People grow like plants, some in light, some in shade. But right now, most people are growing in artificial light. We are told to rise above, to detach, to preserve our peace, as if numbness is noble. But here is the gut-punch truth. We have mistaken emotional suppression for enlightenment. We have pathologized passion. We have glorified detachment. We have built entire identities around avoidance and called it healing. This hits hardest now because never before has silence been so seductive. Being unbothered is trending. Being unreachable is admired. And the most broken people are praised for their ability to feel nothing. But Jung knew better. He did not believe in high-vibe avoidance. He believed in confrontation. He believed in depth earned through descent. Not curated perfection, but wholeness forged in the furnace of self-examination. Today you do not become deep by retreating. You become deep by remembering who you were before the world told you to disappear. This message matters now more than ever because we are witnessing a generation that is not rebelling with anger, but with emotional resignation. They are not yelling. They are disconnecting, not because they do not care, but because they cared so much it almost killed them. So they have buried the fire. They have labeled it old soul, so they do not have to admit they are numb. They have mistaken emotional exhaustion for growth, so they do not have to revisit the pain. But Jung's work reminds us, you cannot ascend without first descending. You cannot become whole by cutting off the part of you that still aches, and you cannot keep calling collapse your identity. This video is a mirror, and it will burn. Because if you feel seen, it means you have been hiding. And if it hurts to hear this, it means you are finally waking up. Now ask yourself, are you wise or just withering? Because the world does not need more numb souls. It needs people on fire. So now what? You have realized you might not be wise. You might just be worn out. You have called your numbness peace. You have called your detachment depth. But now you see the truth. You are not becoming someone new. You are becoming invisible. Here's how to change that starting today. 1. Stop romanticizing your withdrawal. You are not protecting your peace if you are avoiding life. You are not an old soul if you are just emotionally shut down. From now on, call it what it is. Burnout, fatigue, emotional frostbite. Language matters, because when you stop lying to yourself, healing begins. In your daily life, catch those moments when you retreat behind "I am just tired" or "I just do not vibe with people." Ask yourself, am I protecting my energy, or have I simply lost it? 2. Start feeling again, on purpose. Reclaiming your soul is not about grand awakenings. It's about micro moments of honest feeling. Every day, give yourself permission to feel something real without editing it. Stare at the sky for 2 minutes. Feel how small and alive you are. Listen to one song that cracks your heart open. Do not distract yourself. Feel it. Cry when the tears rise. Do not apologize. Do not explain. This is soul work in its rawest form. The foundation of all mental illness is the avoidance of legitimate suffering. Stop avoiding. Start allowing. 3. Replace escape with expression. We all have escape routes. Doom scrolling, isolation, sarcasm, and spiritual bypassing. Replace them with rituals of expression. You do not need to journal for an hour. Just write down one sentence a day that hurts to admit. Start where it stings. That is where the healing hides. Or speak it, into a voice note, into a mirror, into your own trembling hands. Truth needs a voice, even if no one hears it but you. 4. Practice conscious reconnection. You do not have to become a social butterfly, but you do need to come out of hiding. Once a week, connect on purpose. Send a raw message to someone you trust. Say, "I miss being real." Ask deeper questions. Give real answers. Do not perform. Do not numb. Show up, even shaking. 5. Make feeling a daily practice. This is your new mantra. Feeling is not weakness. Feeling is returning. So each morning ask, what part of me have I silenced? And each night ask, what part of me came back to life today? Track your return. Celebrate your spark. Make coming home to yourself the most sacred thing you do. Because the truth is, you were never meant to fade. You were meant to burn with meaning. Now go light the match. You came here thinking you were just tired, maybe a little introverted, maybe just more mature than the world around you. But now you have seen what lies beneath the surface. You have faced the possibility that your quiet is not always peace, that your distance is not always wisdom, that your stillness is not always strength. Carl Jung did not believe in shallow comfort. He believed in radical confrontation with the self, because only through that fire do we become whole. And today you have stood at that fire. You have seen the dangerous illusion that emotional exhaustion can look like growth, that numbness can wear the face of depth, and that what we sometimes call an old soul may simply be a soul too burdened to feel alive anymore. But you are not here to fade. You are here to burn with meaning, to integrate every forgotten piece of your story, to feel again, fully, unapologetically, ferociously. This journey is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world convinced you to shrink, before you called your wounds wisdom, before you called your silence strength, before you wore burnout like a badge and called it maturity. This is the invitation to come back into your life, one feeling at a time, to reclaim the sacred fire of your spirit, to stop disappearing and start returning, because true individuation, the path Jung dedicated his life to, is not about escaping the self. It is about reuniting with it, in all its contradictions, complexities, rage, beauty, and depth. So ask yourself one last time, are you wise or are you wounded? Are you deep or are you disappearing? Are you maturing or are you slowly going numb? Because the answer changes everything. And if this message sparked even the faintest flicker of recognition within you, do not let it die. Nurture it. Fan the flame. Let it guide you back to the self you were never meant to lose. This is not the end. It is the ignition. You have seen behind the mask. Now it is time to live without it. If this stirred something buried beneath the noise, don't silence it. This was not just a video. It was a mirror, a rupture, a revolt. At Psychoria, we do not offer comfort. We offer confrontation, not content that numbs, but content that burns. If you are ready to walk through the fire instead of around it, subscribe. Leave a comment, depth or drain. Let us see where you stand. Until next time, stay unshakable, stay awake, and above all, stay true to the self that is trying to rise.